gentlemen, welcome back. And right now we're on our sphere of banking on resilience. Well, it's prudent for India's BFSI sector to invest in business continuity plans, risk management strategies, and resilient workplace cultures. Well, the cybersecurity panel discussion is going to be on combating cyber crimes. Is offense the best defense? Well, the stakes are much higher in the BFSI and NBFC sectors, and passive IT security and reactive breach strategies won't protect these businesses from the ongoing assault from cyber attackers and data thieves. Well, let's discuss some of the cybersecurity must-haves to go on the offensive. Well, we're talking about the multi-factor authentication, privileged access management, a business email compromise shield, network defenses, customer cybersecurity education, a multi-layered defense strategy, and extending your defenses to customers as part of customer care packages or insurance. Well, we're elated to be joined by our panelists, Chavan, Chief Information Security Officer, Edelweiss General Insurance Company. Well, Ninad is a seasoned security professional with the experience of over 15 years on information security in the BFSI sector. In the current role, he's somebody who's responsible for the management and governance of the information and cybersecurity services. Thank you so much, Ninad, for joining us today. Well, joining Ninad would be Navneethan M., the Chief Information Security Officer, Groww. Navneethan has deep expertise in the cybersecurity space and has implemented multiple cybersecurity compliance requirements across different industry sectors. Inviting him to now join us on the stage and screen. Thank you so much, Navneethan, for joining us. Joining him would be Babitha. Pleasure having you. Joining would be Babitha VP, the Chief Information Security Officer, CSB Bank Limited, an experienced cybersecurity expert with CISA certification with vast experience in security product implementation and fine-tuning policies adhering to regulatory compliance. Thank you so much, Babitha, for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Bhamna, and good afternoon to all.
Pleasure having you. Ladies and gentlemen, also joining would be Ashutosh Mishra, the Chief Risk Manager, NABARD. Well, Ashutosh, being a risk management professional experienced in establishment, upgradation of enterprise-wide risk management framework, putting in place BCP and DR, bringing in new perspectives in the management of emerging risks, providing strategic inputs for holistic organizational growth. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for joining us today.
Hi, good afternoon.
Pleasure having you. And now it is time to introduce you to the moderator of the panel discussion, Mr. Anuj Bhansali, Head of Trust and Safety, PhonePe. Anuj comes with over a decade of years of experience in payments and has been involved in building scalable platforms and products. At PhonePe, somebody who oversees domains related to trust, identity, safety, and security. Thank you so much, Anuj, for joining us today.
Thank you, Bhavna.
So with this, Anuj, the platform and the stage and the screen is all yours. Over to you to take it forth with your panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, all. Delighted to have you here on this conversation. Would start with some facts around. So cyber attacks, especially in India. So I didn't know, right, that the rate of increase, for me, it was an astounding. While in the last 1 year, they have doubled up, 300%, right? They have increased. We had 1.16 million attacks. And this is just compared to 400K odd back in 2019. This is as per certain. Now, 1.16, when you translate it back to daily, roughly it is 3,000 odd attacks. That was the number that was seen in 2016 in the entire year. Now, that's a phenomenal rise of cyber attacks, right? We always keep thinking that it's something which doesn't happen to us, but it's seeming like this is an industry which is growing much faster than any of us. In the typically or traditionally, right, most of the cyber attacks were always confined to nation state actors. That is where we always thought about it. But with the recent incentivization for each of these cyber criminals, we are seeing them attacking all of our networks, given that BFSI is one of the most critical sectors where the consumer trust is high. Today, just taking an approach of law enforcement, investigating and closing this is something which will not fly with us, especially given that it happens in a distributed role. So as a private sector, we will have to play an instrumental role. Organizations till now have been using a react and a defend approach. When something happened, we fixed it, we went in, we said, okay, now we are good enough to do. One thing that I like to take away, right, what the art of war teaches us is not to rely on the likelihood of the enemy not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him. Not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. Now, most companies are reactive and fix or update systems when they break. We need to go on the offense and hunt for the weakness. Has the time now come to be more offensive rather than defensive? With that, I would like to open up. And my first interaction would be with Mr. Ashutosh, where I would like to understand, how does this impact business? Emails, passwords of hundreds of even government employees were leaked in the recent data leaks that happened across multiple entities, right? So, and this has been common for the last 1 month. How do you think this impacts businesses, the customers, the ecosystem, sir?
Thank you, and it's a pleasure being here. So thank you all the panelists, Anuj, and the audience who are there. In fact, this question is a very interesting question in the sense that cybercrimes has always been real. But what has happened is that now virtual being extended to all activities. Now it has become the turf in which businesses are operating. Okay. And that has accentuated the risk of cybercrime quite substantially. And when we try to assess how it would impact the businesses, it would impact the businesses from an enterprise-wide risk management perspective in many ways. First, of course, is the confidentiality, loss of data, loss of information, vital information, and then the data which is supposed to be kept confidential as that is the first part. Second part is that the business is impacted because the data which is supposed to be used by a particular business is now available for sale, available in dark web. That is the second part. Third part is the reputation part. When you are an organization and it comes to public knowledge that the data with you is not safe, then people would be scared, people would be carry of sharing data with you. So, and your entire business reputation is lost. Fourth would be that possibly those data could be used for the purpose of phishing, for the purpose of ransomware to the customers, and which would have a much bigger implication. So, to sum up succinctly, the implications of data breach, cybercrime can be huge, can be devastating for any business. And from an enterprise-wide risk management perspective, what I would like to say is that the aim of all good business, good risk management rather, is to protect. And you are only as protected as your weakest link. And it's very important that your turf, your domain, your platform on which the entire business is playing out is as safe as the Queen's vault. That is how I'd like to start. Thank you. Yeah.
It seems, sorry, I was on mute, the standard problems.
Okay.
So, Babitha ji, carrying forward on that, from a banking perspective, right, from a bank where you are the epitome of a customer trust, how do you think a cybersecurity or a cybercrime impacts you?
Yeah, thank you, Anuj, for the question. And I do agree with Mr. Ashutosh. He has rightly mentioned, like when it comes to cyber attack, it is not only the trust which has been lost, and it is the business cost loss also is happening along with it. And as you rightly mentioned, when it comes to a banking sector, the business is built based on the trust. Not only for banking business, whichever business is coming, just basically with the trust only. Why we are not keeping the money with us? We will be putting in the bank, saying that it is feeling that it is more secure than if we hold. So the bank will take care of it. So that is the trust which is customers are showing to us. So when a data breach comes, right now, India is not having any data protection law with us, but we are expecting one to come soon. But in the European countries, there are GDPR, and based on the GDPR, the companies are penalized if any data breaches occurs. So fear of that penalization, what the people are doing is they were paying the ransom amount asked by the fraudsters to get the system back into position. But in India, what is happening? Many of the attacks or breaches happen since we are not having that kind of thing. People are not ready to give the ransom amount, and we are trying to restructure or rebuild the system from the scratch or from where it has been lost. So in such scenario, the fraudsters are not getting money out of it, but there also we are losing our reputation, which affects the business like anything. So with cyber attack, it is very difficult to say that we can secure our organization 100%. We cannot know because this is a cat and mouse game which has been played for that. Whenever new technologies are getting evolved, the fraudsters will come find some or the other loopholes to get into the system. So here, what we can do is a zero trust. We have, as a big organization, we should follow the process, or we should create a culture right from the physical security onwards. We have to see that we follow the zero trust, and we have to incorporate it as part of our culture. So when we are going for a zero trust model, we don't believe in anything, any traffic or any third party who is coming. Now we can see that supply chain kind of attacks are happening more frequently, wherein targeting one person itself, a lot of organizations are getting affected. So things are moving in such a way that we have to think more like a fraudster and have to come up with defense mechanism or detect mechanism to find those frauds at the earlier stage, and we can and block them or identify them or defeat them at a very early stage itself. Because once we have a reputation loss, we cannot even account that loss. The whole business is built in the trust, and when people start losing the trust on us, then it will 100% affect the business. So this is my view on it.
Thanks, Babitha ji. Ninad, while most of the people, right, believe either it was a domestic data center, I believe you have been working on the cloud, right? In terms of a cloud security, would like to understand how does an org remain prepared, right? How does it treat cybersecurity? How does it tackle issues of cybercrime? Ninad? Ninad, are you able to hear me? Hello? Ashutosh ji, Babitha ji, are you able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you. I think he has to unmute himself.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Ninad. Yeah.
Audible, guys?
Yes.
Hi, thanks, Anuj. First of all, with the cloud, the last session was clearly mentioning that what the cloud adoption strategies people are going to adopt and how they are going to proceed. I'm going to highlight only on the few aspects of where we need to take care on the terms of security aspects. First and most important, what I understand and what I strongly believe in is user people. People are the weakest link, and you need to keep on educating them to get a right security posture for your organization. It starts from the root and goes top up of the hierarchy where it is. Second, on the cloud adoption, you need to understand that cloud is a shared responsibility model always. It will be a shared responsibility. You need to know what is your responsibility and how you're going to protect it. It plays a very critical role in protecting your information. Second, it is about where your data is lying on the cloud, who has access to it, and what level of access they have. If your data, if you have no visibility, then no matter what controls you put, you're finding a pin in a haystack. It's with something of that sort will happen, because cloud itself has got different features, different ways of collecting logs. If you don't know where your data is lying, it will be like, what am I looking for? Most of it. Second, but yeah, last the point is you have to keep on doing tests. You have to test the environment. You have any small change, any small requirement happening, you will have to keep on testing your environment to ensure that in case of a calamity or in case of a vulnerability, you know what has to be done. But how we will come to know is through testing. Thorough testing of the environment will play a very critical role in this. And last but not the least, a simulated phishing attack on your employees, because whatever you do, however strong your passwords are or your MFAs are, we know in India we have a mechanism where PCI DSS mandates that all your transactions should have an OTP, online transaction. But we see many transactions, or even with the phishing, SIM swapping frauds, people share their OTPs, and they are doing it. That's where the leak happens, because otherwise there's no possibility of having an online fraud in India. That is, but that's what is happening. We need to treat, and I hope that we don't want this thing to be repeated with our employees who openly go and share our passwords outside, OTP outside. Passwords, yeah, 90% time passwords are broken within minutes or seconds, because they are so easy, because we make our life easy because we don't want to remember difficulties. That's how we are. So the best part is that we train, keep on training. There is no end to it, and that will help us going forward. Thank you.
Sure. So is Navneethan here? Or I don't see him. Okay. So that's an interesting angle, right? Which you brought in. One of the biggest link is towards the human aspects of it. Babitha ji, would like to understand from you, what do you think is, given that the structure is always evolving, it's a hybrid cloud that we are moving towards, what is the weakest link? How do we prepare ourselves? What are the offensive technologies that we could think about? And B, how do you think are we covered? Does a VAPT today cover it? It's like most of the organizations, right? They do a periodic because that is what is mandated out. Now, doing a VAPT once every 6 months, do you think that covers out our security posture? And how can we actually go ahead and defend it?
Yeah, I do agree with Nina that weakest link in cybersecurity is human. Human is the weakest link. So no one now till this date, nothing else has proved that it is not the weakest link. The thing is, like, if we take a simple cyber fraud, online fraud happening, it is not because any bank got breached or anything of that kind. It is been because the people are not aware of what they are doing, or they are doing it in a this robotic way. Just they are clicking on some links which is coming. They are just inputting whatever data is being asked, but they are not aware for what purpose this data has been collected, or which link they are inputting the data. So, and when during this pandemic time, earlier in India, there was a time when I was going through one of the statistics which has been showed that only up to 75% of the people which are above the medium and above the top class people are using the online kind of applications. Now, with this pandemic, even the lower line people, or class wise below poverty line people, they also started using online for their day-to-day activities. We are giving all this facility to the general public. Are we taking the effort to train them or tell them that this is what need to be done, and you are not supposed to share your OTP with a third party? Or if someone asks anything through over phone, you are not supposed to respond to them. We are not doing it. So only those about hardly 60% of the people are aware about all these things, but remaining 40% are unaware of it. So we should take from the bank's perspective as well as from the social angle. If we think now everything is in the digital world, even after this pandemic, this is going to continue. Now everyone for our day-to-day activity to purchase something from a shop, we are not going to a shop. We are just doing online purchase. So this will continue now onward. So next, what we have to do is, and just it is continuing. I'm sure the cyber fraud is also continue, and it will go beyond what percentage which we tell right now. So only thing we can come out from all these kind of frauds is to make aware of the people what they are doing, which side they are going. Don't fall prey of that. If at all anything is there, you have to go to the official website of that particular organization or a company for some offers and all. So all this kind of general awareness need to be created among the people. Then when coming to the second part, the PT, whichever cyber frauds which has happened, we know that it is not a new thing they have done. It is the exploitation of the existing vulnerabilities in the system. There also human have a main role, that if we know that there is a vulnerability in the system, and if we are not patching it within a period of time, hackers are exploiting that vulnerabilities and are trying to get into the system. When we are doing the PT, the person who is doing the PT, it depends upon the skill that person holds. If the person is not that skilled, the PT is also a failure. So how we are going to assess that? So for that, we have to combine all these things, and awareness is the first one thing. And when VAPT also, we have to do it. It's not that we are not supposed to do that, we have to do it. And if we see any vulnerabilities which is highlighted in the VA or PT, we should come up with a solution on a faster pace or within the time frame, so that people won't or fraudsters won't use that loopholes to get into the system. So always, and review of the firewall CB, it doesn't mean that we are having an next-gen firewall. It will take care of everything. But if we are giving any access in the firewall, then the purpose of the firewall doesn't work. So the reviewing of the tool and checking whether the tool which we are using is doing it in the correct way, for which it is meant for, that all this comes under awareness only. I will treat it as awareness only. So people who are governing that tool should be aware that it is configured in the right way. So of course, people are the weakest link, and PT is not only the one we have to go for. Whenever PT comes, it is the expertise of the person who is trying to intrude in the system that gives the result of the PT.
Sure. So now I would like to switch the track slightly, right? I think we discussed that consumers, the education, both internal employees as well as externally, is something that we could look into. What about a supply chain attack, right? We discussed about it in terms of, I don't know if you read about it a couple of days back, the Revil attack, right? It has taken over at least 1,000 companies down. Apparently, I was reading through the Russian hacker who interviewed that person out, and they are clearly saying that it's $1 million easily a day that they could make out of that. In the ever-growing world of digital, right, we are dependent on a lot of vendors for supply of different tools and technologies. How do we secure ourselves from the supply chain attacks? Navneethan, if you could shed some light on that.
Great, Anuj. Amazing discussions and great, thought and experience from the great leaders. Happy to be part of this forums. As rightly you have mentioned with the statistics, really we are going through a lot of challenges. Like if you take this, let us take a 50 kilometers water storage. It's a dam, right? It's a bigger water dam. I mean, till now we are focusing only on the front tunnel, right, where we are opening and closing the tunnel. We are not focused on this radius of the 50 kilometers, how it has been stored. So that is the bigger challenges. Right now, primary focus is only on this primary tunnel where we are opening and closing, whether it is secure enough, it's strong enough, where we can go ahead and take it forward. But now the challenge is absolutely different. Really, we have to focus on this entire 360 degree. Wherever we have this entire wall, entire perimeter, entire mountain, it's strong enough where the data leakage or the water leakage is not there, right? In any perimeters, any 1 centimeter of hole also will lead to the major disaster, right? Because it will flood that, because of the height of water storage, it's close to 30, 40 feet. If any 1 centimeter, one places, it's complete with the pressure, so data will go out. Right, to that standpoint, really the supply chains is really making a bigger impact from end to end. In 2013, how we had a target attack, right? If you see this organization, because I have close to 2 decades of experience, in 2013, we have to sell it very hardly before target attack happened. Actually, I think everybody will agree. I mean, the people are very hesitate to buy the product because if you take a cybersecurity, it's like IT, they manage all the stuff. So it may not require separate skill set, separate, resources and all the things at all. After 2013 target stores attack, it's like that's one of the supply chain attacks, right? Where we have a AC ventilator, they were able to penetrate your data center, they were able to tap your POS machines and feed that, all credit card swiping, wherever you swiping, one data set goes to their data centers. So that's why it is a huge. So now really we have to have a look up, more and more in the last 10 years, or adoption rate on in the cloud is really gone. If you see this earlier organizations, if you want to connect with any interfaces or any bank, maybe Babitha would have agreed, like we should have a separate dedicated line and link, or we need a separate data center to connect to applications or infrastructures. Now the environment is simple API, right? If you have a simple API, it's more than enough to connect the organization wherever you are. So that's mean data in terms of the pulling and pushing is very simple, and like it's like open and where I can plug into the organizations anywhere. So that standpoint, supply chain attack, it's more significant, and really we have to look on a lot of parameters, like wherever you have onboarded, to avoid any shadow IT, to avoid any lateral movement. If you take current scenarios, maybe since a cloud based and an API based, most of the organizations, most of the application procurement, it won't happen centrally. Like you are part of a DevOps team, you feel something is useful for your organizations. The people swipe the card and they will buy the API plug into your organization. Really, from cybersecurity standpoint, really nowhere we are not aware, right? I mean, who bought what software, where it is pulling what informations. That's like a little bit challenges for that. Really, we need a little bit control on the shadow IT, little bit control on what we are buying, what we are plugging in, and before plugging in, really we need to go through the approval process. It should be pretty. It should not be a showstopper, right? It should be enabler, like as and when it's happened, because all the time the requirement comes as like yesterday, right? We are in the IT, we are in the cyber, any OPSEC assessment or any security STLC, SaaS, status, whatever you do, just it's like a development team comes is I would have deployed week before it got delayed. Shall we do it, as soon as possible overnight? That's how it comes. So that's when real. We also should be very clear on in terms of our process. We should not take it up. No. We are in the queue. It takes in a week time. Then it will be a showstopper, right? It should not be the case. It should be as and when. We should be an enabler. We should be a hand holding, the person for the respective team. So that's an point to avoid this all the supply chain stuff. Really, we need 360-degree holistic approach, and what are the things we are buying. I mean, just to avoid all the shadow, what are things we are buying, selling, plugging into the environment. It should go after the approval. So this process really we have to streamline, like who can do it. It's a purely on the DevOps teams, right? Current environment DevOps teams have a complete control on the infrastructures. DevOps teams are one, just it's deploying this overall infrastructure. So really we have to have a touch on whether DevOps team is taking care of deployment. Other side is in terms of the finance, where you should have a tight controls on the finance, because whoever it is, whatever they buy, really they have to go get approval from the finance team, right? So where from my standpoint, I have very tight control, tight governance between the DevOps at the same time on the finance team. So before buying any applications for any department, it's maybe up $1, $2. Anything if you want to buy, like it has to come for the security approval. But we also ensure that it will happen as and when seamlessly this approval process things happen, then positively we'll take it forward.
Sure, Navneethan. So, Nirav, wanted to pivot this out, right? On one side, we can control the IT infrastructure that goes in. How do we control the shadow IT? You talked about the education of the customers to your employees. On the other side, every company, right, as and when we keep going, we end up generating a lot of data, right? And this data is basically something which is never ending. Now, in case, right, just trying to put 2 + 2 together, right? There are ransomware attacks. While Babitha ji did mention that Indian companies do not end up paying, at the end of the day, it is still a security risk, right? With big data, with a lot of personalization that keeps going on, each organization is doing. Can there be something that is done in terms of ability to recover much faster, right? When let's say some attack hits you.
Over here, the first and most important point, which I've already mentioned in my previous chart, is you need to know where your data is lying. I think most of the time with an approach that we are doing of hybrid cloud and multi-cloud environment, the question comes, do we know where our data is lying and what are the recovery points that we need to have? If we have identified, I have a proper risk assessment done to identify this, I think it is then about what mechanism we need to know and what is your RTO RP you want to maintain to recover that data. Second aspect, when I have done this, or we had few examples we discussed, or we have an example, latest one where the capital was hacked. It was a simple S3 bucket which was compromised, and that through there, it was the entire environment that was gone for. Why it happened? S3 bucket is used as a storage mechanism, very cheap, very as a business model, it provides you very cost-effective option to be implemented. But can you protect it? Do you have a mechanism or understanding of how you will protect data which is loaded on S3? Can you load data on S3 without being exposed on internet? Or can you restrict those accesses if it is not required? This kind of analysis will help you to reduce your internet, or I would say your risk exposure that we talk about, to identify where my data is and how I'm protecting. Second thing, sir, ransomware. Yes, I would say you have to keep your eyes open. Vulnerability assessments are activities, or I would say let's get DevOps into the life cycle of everything that we are doing. It will help us big time before even it hits the market. If we do correct practices, coding practices, follow them diligently, it will help us to grow and protect the organization and our data. Thank you.
Great. So Ashutosh, since we are running out of time, last question would like to understand, given that your vast experience around, what are the 3 pillars of, let's say, risk management for security? And how does an offensive play into the same? Can we actually go into an offense in the traditional way of security?
Okay, so I would like to bring the parallel of risk management into cybersecurity and how to combat cybercrime. So to simplify things, when we say is offense the best defense, the way I would like to interpret it is that when we say offense, it basically means that we will be proactive. Okay? Instead of being reactive, we will be proactive. So let me bring in a core concept of risk management, which is now even valid, but it is also going a little bit of a modification. The core concept on which the risk management operates is the 3-pillar concept. The first pillar, the second pillar, and the third pillar. First pillar is the business, which takes care of the risk, be it the risk of cybercrimes, be it any other business risk, be it credit risk. It is the business itself who takes care of that risk. So business acts as the first line of defense. The second line of defense is the risk management. So what does the risk management do? It collaborates with the business to bring in the systems, processes, procedures, so that the unpredictability of doing business gets down to the minimum. So that is the second line of defense. And what is the third line of defense? Third line of defense is performed by the audit function, which tries to give a reassurance to the management that things are going in the way it is intended. Now let's bring this to our subject. Is offense the best defense? Now, since I'm a CRO, I'll take the parallel of risk management. Now, what has happened is that these 3 pillars, instead of operating separately, have now started operating all by themselves together. So what is happening? Risk is collaborating with business at the first line itself. Okay? Instead of waiting or acting as a silo, risk is collaborating with business at the front end, so that things are designed in the best possible manner. So that is how it is designed. Then second thing is that let's talk about the third pillar, which is the audit, which used to happen, say, 2 decades back when we had joined. It was happening at a particular periodicity. Now audit has become concurrent, which means that alongside business happening, the audit is also happening at the same time. So to bring this parallel into combating cybercrime and is offense the best defense, what this particular parallel would mean is that we operate in such a way that the preventive measures that we want to build in would operate in a proactive basis alongside doing business. So alongside building IT systems or the security that we want to build in, instead of reacting and waiting for something to happen or waiting to do BAPT at a particular periodicity, which we all do, and the report also comes from the CISO to me, we would have to be very proactive about that. We'll have to scan the environment, be cognizant of the emerging risks which are happening elsewhere, which may not have happened to my organization, and then take proactive action to make sure that such things don't happen to me. And then the other thing is, of course, to look at the entire thing in a slightly different dimension. What is that I need to protect? I need to protect my organization, and I need to protect them who are collaborating with me. They can be my vendors or my customers. Okay. So when I need to protect my vendors, my customers, it's also my duty to make sure that they don't do anything which can affect them, affect me. To take the example of Babitha, which when she mentioned that the OTP which comes, if you don't share the OTP, then the chances of breaches happening is very remote. Okay, so as a banker, I need to make sure that the customer is very much aware that the OTP is something which is not to be shared. So instead of trying to make him aware at a subsequent point of time, this can be an ongoing scheme, ongoing project, so that the customer is made aware of. So basically, to kind of bring in again and to sum up the risk management parallel, the 3 lines of defense, which basically is the business taking care of the risk, and then the risk management here in case of cyber crime, etc., the CISO or the security part, and the audit part taking care of that. All these things have to be very, very proactive and to do things simultaneously so that things are taken care of in a proactive basis. So that is how I'd like to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's been actually pretty insightful. So I would like to sum up the final. I think we started with, yes, it does impact a business, right from a trust to could be actual potential revenue loss to even a business loss that would happen. The right approach to take there would be to start with a zero trust model. That is, I think, that we are trying to summarize back. I think we added points around how do we reduce the influence of a shadow IT, how do we keep better controls around. And I think the most important one that was added by Nath is not only customer education as well as your employee education, but also you should know where do your systems lie, where do your data lies, so that you could actually secure it. And I think you've summed it up really well, that it will be a proactive approach that will help us in reducing this. Thank you so much for this, enlightening us. Bhavna, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much to all our incredible panelists. Thank you so much, Anuj, for moderating it so wonderfully. A big thank you once again.